Right guys, okay, so this is what we were working on in the last lesson, yeah? Where we've got this and it slows down and it goes, it breaks the tower. Now, what I found was that 450 frames was not enough, so I've just increased it a little bit just to 500, okay? You might also need to do the same, because what I found was that at 450, when it stopped, there was still a bit of movement going on. Yeah? So I've increased it from 450 to 500 frames. Yeah? Now, what we're doing in this lesson is we are setting up 3 cameras. Okay, because in the last lesson we had this camera, and we looked at it, and we followed the ball, and it did this. Oh, no, hang on. That's the wrong camera. Yeah? We had a camera, and it did this. Yeah? And that's fine, but we need to start doing a little bit more with our cameras. So I've got now 3 cameras, and the way I added these is very easy. I just went add camera, it puts it down here, then you do Command G, Command R, and you set the rotations to 0 so that it's pointing directly down. Then the above camera is nice and easy. You grab it, you move it on the x-axis, you move it up, and there's your camera. Yeah? If you want to set it as an active camera, you can just right click on it and click Set Active Camera. Right click, set active camera, and then that is your camera now looking from above. So that's how I added a second camera. That's nice and easy. Yeah? Once I did that, I rendered it. Okay, so we already have this. This is from the last lesson. That's our side camera. Now after it's rendered, we have this above camera. Maybe this is not lesson 13. I'm still playing about with the lesson numbers. Okay, so maybe your lesson number is slightly different. Okay, the side camera, or rather the rotating camera, is a little bit trickier. Okay, and this is the kind of effect that we're going for. So let me show you how I did that. Let me first delete the one that I made earlier. Okay. Now, the first thing to do, edit, preferences, add-ons, and search for curve. Once you've done that, you want to check this, add curve extra object. Okay, just check that, and then you can close it. And what that does is, when you go to add curve, you have all of these extra options down here. Yeah? And one of them is very useful. One of them we're going to be using now. Curve spiral, Archimedean. Yeah? Now, what yours will look like, yours won't look like this. What does it look like when it starts? I think it looks something like this. Yeah? As soon as you create it, you get something that looks like this, and you get this menu bar down here. Now, if you click off it, that menu bar disappears, and there's no way to get it back. Okay? So as soon as we've created it, it's important that we set it up correctly. Right, so there's my curve, let me delete it. Right, so I'm going to add a curve, an Archimedean curve. It looks something like this. I've got this menu, so I need to set it up now that I've got it. The number of steps is kind of your precision, if you like. It's kind of your resolution of the spiral. The smaller the number of steps, or the fewer the number of steps, the more jagged your curve, the less smooth it is. Yeah? The more steps you have, the smoother your curve. Yeah? So a value around 50 is fine. The radius, yeah, so that's your radius. We want it nice and wide. Let's go above. Yeah. We want it nice and wide so that our camera can go round it. And we want it like that. We want the height so that it starts off nice and high and rotates round and comes down to the bottom. Okay, and we can look from overhead. It looks the same from overhead, yeah, but from the side we can see that we've got some height. I also don't want it to finish exactly on the floor, so this, I'm going to move this up a couple of meters. Yeah? When we're happy with that, when you've got something, it doesn't have to look exactly like this, but when you've got something similar, you can click off it, you will never see that menu again. Okay? If you want to change it, you need to delete your spiral, make it again. It's very frustrating. Okay, so we can go back into object mode, and now we can add a third camera. And remember, our camera goes down here. Yeah? So Alt-G, Alt-R. I'm going to reset my rotations to 0. When I've done that, with my camera, with my third camera selected, and what we can do, this is going to be, we can rename our cameras, okay, which is quite useful. With our camera selected, we're going to add a constraint. The constraint is going to be a follow path constraint. And it's going to follow our spiral. And we can see as soon as we've done that, it hooks on to the bottom of the spiral. Yeah? Now we need to change the forward axis to -Z and the up axis to Y. Don't ask me why, we just need to do that. And it's going to follow the curve, I think. When we've done that, we can add another constraint called a track to constraint. And this is going to track our sphere. Yeah? We can leave these alone. Now, now I need to set it as active camera. And if I press play, it's not moving. Yeah? And that's because we haven't programmed any keyframes in. Yeah? So we've got our camera, and if we if we go here, we see this follow path constraint, and the offset is 0. Well, we can move that to -100, and then it goes to the top of our spiral. Yeah? And it's looking straight at our ball. Well, what we can do is, at -100, we can have a keyframe. Then, we can go to about 450. Change the offset to 0, so now it's at the bottom of the spiral. Add another keyframe. Nice and easy. And then when we play it, we see that our camera is slowly moving around. Keyframe 1, it starts at the top. Keyframe 450, it's at the bottom. Now we can see our camera there. And if we look at it through the lens of the camera, we can see that it's rotating quite nicely. Now, I've got a lot of ball here and not many cubes, so I can change the focal length maybe down to 25. Yeah, so that I've got less ball and more cubes. Maybe I can change it further, down to 15 or something. Yeah. Again, have a play, see what works for you. When you've got something that you're happy with, render it. And what you should have is 3 renders. It's useful to put them in their own folder. It's useful to rename them. This might not be less than 13. When you're watching it, this might not be less than 13. We've got a side camera from last lesson, rotating, and we've got the camera from above. Okay, what we're going to do next actually doesn't involve Blender. Yeah, so we can close that. You should save it. I'm not going to because I don't need this. What happens next is we fire up iMedia, and what normally happens is we see our thing that we're using for our checkpoints. Well, we can go back to projects, and we can make a new one, make a new movie, and then into here we can drag our 3 films, our 3 renders. Yeah? And we can put them all down here, and they are just going to play here, just one after another. Yeah? Now that's not actually that interesting. Yeah? What would be nice is to have a bit of each of them. So for example here, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click, how do I split? Split clip. Okay, then here, I'm going to split clip, and this bit is going to come here. So I'm going to start off with a side view for a little bit, and then, actually I don't want that, that doesn't look very good. So it stops just as it's starting to crash. Okay, so kind of like that. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to put this here. So we start off with the side view, starting to crash, and then we switch to the top view, where it's also starting to crash. Now this has already crashed quite a lot. Yeah, that's already quite a lot of crash, which is not really what we see here. So I'm going to undo that. So I want it just as it's starting to crack. Okay, so split that there. And then I just want a little bit, so I'm going to split it again. Put that there. Okay, so a few seconds of that. Okay, and then it picks up from where it left off. That looks good. Okay, now I want something rotating. So we're about here. I'm going to split that. Split it again. Take this middle bit. Okay, good. Okay, good. Now these transitions are a bit rough, so let's fix that. Let's have a kind of, a cross dissolve. There we go. So now these transitions should be a bit smoother. That's a nice transition. And this one, okay, good. Good, okay, so that's quite long. And now we get down to the bottom. So where are we? So now we're kind of down here a little bit. We're going to split that. I'm going to throw that away. So we get down to the bottom. Okay. Let's split that. And one last bit from above. Have that here. I need some transitions here. I'm going to use the same transition, just because if you chop and change with your transitions, it tends to not look very good. All of these bits I'm not going to use, so I'll throw those away. And this is what I've got. Yours doesn't have to look like this, okay? It's just about playing about with 3 different input sources. Good. Now, if you wanted to, you could document, Blender assets, audio. Can I just drag this on? Yeah. Okay, now I need to trim this, so I can just drag it in and it will snap to the end of the video. Okay, good. Happy with that, yeah? It's not perfect, but it's okay. Once I've got something I'm happy with, I can export that out to a file. Export must complete other tasks. What's it doing? I've not asked it to do anything. Anyway, once... That is a bit strange. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Save this in my Blender assets, MOV, and this is lesson 13, collage. And that will take a minute. You'll see it working up here. When that's done, you'll get a little notification message. MOV, lesson 13. You should get a little notification message. You can go back. This is Collage B. Here's one that I made earlier. This was my first try. There's no music on this, and I've got HDRI here. I'm not sure if I like this one more. It's okay. Yeah. It's just about playing about with 3 different input sources and splicing, cutting up the videos and just seeing what works best for you. Yeah. Anyway, when you've done that, you can go back to your checkpoint thing, and this collage can now be added in as media. And this can now go down and be part of your checkpoint your checkpoint piece of work. Your portfolio is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Don't worry if your portfolio doesn't look like all of this, because I'm doing things in a strange order. Yeah. But the point is that you've made your collage, you've exported it, and that can now go into your Blender portfolio. Let me rename this. Yeah. And it can go on the end, and that is another lesson done. All right, guys, have fun with that, yeah? Again, it's just about trial and error. It's just about finding something that you're happy with. You don't have to add music, but you can. Have some fun with it, and put your hands up if you get stuck. All right, guys.